I accept.
I think you lost your minds and you got way ahead of yourselves. But the consequences of your actions led to you being fired.
Yeah.
Liz Truss hoping that would save her skin. It didn't. She then had to go too. Humiliation for the pair of you and for the country on the global stage. But again, I come back to one thing. You may not want to apologise, and I'm not after it for me.
Look.
But I'm not trying to humiliate you.
No.
You guys, with respect, Kwasi, you guys humiliated yourselves.
Well, OK.
Right?
Yeah.
But in the process, you also exposed the country to humiliation. It was a very damaging period for Britain in terms of our standing around the world. And more importantly to me, millions of British people already suffering from a pandemic, already suffering a cost of living crisis, already suffering from energy costs going through the roof. All these things, they then had the added financial burden as a consequence of your...
It was a very difficult time.
So my point is...
It was a very
So my point is, you're a
time.
smart guy. You know that the decisions that you took led to that financial harm for millions of people in this country. Why are you not prepared? This, you know what this reminds me of? And you're going to laugh, but it reminds me of Frost trying to get that apology out of Nixon for the damage he'd done to the reputation of America. Why don't you just take a leaf out of Nixon's book? He didn't want to apologise either. He resisted for years, and then eventually he sat back and you could see his brain whirring, thinking, actually, you know what? Yes, I'm sorry. Why is it so hard?
It's not hard. All I'm saying
is impossible. You're literally finding it impossible.
No, but look, there were lots of other people involved in this. OK,
You were the chancellor.
I'm not going to take sole responsibility when there were lots and lots of other people.
You're not taking any responsibility.
No, I do. I have taken responsibility. I'm not going to take sole responsibility.
You don't think what happened raises the bar to the level of wanting to apologise?
All I've said is that I took responsibility. And we should have done things in a more measured and a deliberate way. That would have been.
Have you heard the Elton John song "Sorry Seems to Be the Hardest Word"?
It's a.
You like that song?
It's a very good song.
Do you play it a lot?
I'm not a big fan of Elton John, but I like that song.
You know that song?
Yeah, I do know that song.
Do those words resonate?
No, look, I'm not coming here to relitigate
You
what happened last
spent 10
year.
minutes not wanting to apologise. You
You
spent the year not wanting to apologise.
No, I've said millions of times
that you won't
I bear
apologise.
Responsibility, that we did things in the wrong way. But in terms of the strategy, I still believe in the strategy. So I don't see why I should apologise for the strategy.
Because the implementation was a total disaster.
The implementation was
So when you
wrong
implement something as a chancellor of this country that causes huge financial harm immediately to millions of British people, the traditional thing is to say, you know what, I'm sorry for the damage I did.
And if you look at where we are now, obviously, interest rates have more than doubled since.
I'm only talking about the consequences of your actions.
Since I was there, I think a lot of the.
I'm talking about by your own admission.
I think thanks to.
Kwasi, I'm talking about by your own admission the consequences of your actions as chancellor and the immediate impact they had.
It was a difficult time.
On millions of people.
I'm not going to come on your show.
You were the one that caused it.
No. I wasn't the sole. We've gone through this a million times.
You were the chancellor.
I was not the sole agent of what happened.
What I can't get my head around. Why are you so desperate?
What I'm trying to say.
Why are you so desperate not to apologise?
Because what will happen is if I say,
I'm sorry.
well, then Gillian's got to say, everyone's got to apologise for everything.
Never mind anybody else.
No, that's important. And I just think that it's very easy to get politicians who are ultimately responsible for things to try and say, OK, I'm sorry.
When politicians screw up badly and it impacts on millions of people's lives, I think that it is incumbent on them not only to take responsibility, but to apologise.
So I've taken responsibility. I accept that the implementation...
But you're not sorry.
I still think the strategy was the right thing.
But you're not sorry for the implementation.
And I think we'll come...
But you're not sorry for the implementation.
And I think we'll come round to...
Do you not find it a bit ridiculous?
No, I don't, because look, we're playing a game here.
We're not playing a game. It's not a game to the millions of people. It's not a game to the people whose lives were affected.
I was saying that I was completely responsible. Not completely responsible, but I was involved in those decisions. Some of those decisions we should have...
But there are people watching this now, honestly, I promise you. I've interviewed many people over the years, thousands. There will be people watching this now going, why doesn't he just say sorry? What's the matter with him?
Yeah, I can understand that, but all I want to say is that I don't apologise for the strategy. I think it's the right thing. I think we've got to have a low
perfectly entitled.
I think we've got to have a lower tax, more productive,
yes, but you can't
wealth-creating.
But you can't have lower taxation without funding it properly.
Yeah, I agree with that, and that was why
you didn't fund it.
If we'd actually talked through, if we'd had time, that was why in the autumn statement I said, look, I'm going to have a statement where we're going to show spending restraint, which will fund the tax cuts. Unfortunately, and it wasn't a choice of mine, I was obviously sacked because of the turbulence, because of the market reaction. I was sacked before I was able to do that. And when Jeremy Hunt
Did Liz Truss say sorry to you?
No, she hasn't apologised to me.
She's never apologised to you?
No,
she screwed you, basically stuck a political knife in your back.
Well, I was sacked, and I think the idea was that she would.
She never apologised?
No, she hasn't done that, and I haven't insisted upon it.
Do you still talk to her?
Yeah, I mean, I've spoken to her.
When was the last time?
Well, a few months ago.
So you don't really talk to her?
No, you don't, do you? No, a few months ago. I see her in the House of Commons.
She stabbed you in the back and ruined your political career, right?
And so once I was sacked, then she took responsibility. We got a new chancellor in who's still there, and a lot of the stuff.
Let me ask you, do you ever apologise for anything?
Yeah, I mean, I apologise in my private life the whole time.
When was the last time you apologised for something?
I think I picked up my daughter from nursery too late, and I apologised then a couple of weeks.
So just to be clear, hang on. Just to be clear, you're happy to apologise to people at a nursery school for being a few minutes late to pick up your daughter, but you're not prepared to apologise to millions of people for screwing their personal finances. That's where I look at it.
I know where you're coming from.
And you think I'm trying to humiliate you. I'm not.
No, I'm just thinking from in terms of public affairs and public life, I think politicians make decisions. And they on the basis of evidence, on the basis of their own philosophy, if you like. And I've never been one for saying, if as a politician, you're personally damaging people. There's policy, there's debate.
But you did personally damage them.
Well, no, because there were lots of other things. I did not personally damage those people.
You've admitted the implementation of your strategy,
and there was a lot of context.
Was so bad it damaged people.
There was a lot of context as well. You said, well, forget about the context. Well, no, the context is important.
I know the context. I saw the reaction to your policy.
And I think that, and there were lots of things going on. There was also the time where I came back from Washington and was sacked, and I haven't asked for an apology for that. That's the way public affairs these days is conducted, and people have sincere beliefs and they want to do the best for their country.
Final question,
and they shouldn't apologise for that.
Well, actually, I think
you and I have a different view, maybe, but
I think you'll find my view is the common view.
Okay.
I honestly do. And honestly, I did not get you here. I actually thought, over time, after a year, you go, actually, yes, I'm sorry. It's literally as simple as that.
Okay.
And then you put up with one day's headlines of Kwasi Kwarteng, I'm sorry that we got it wrong and I damaged people's lives.
So I think why...
Instead what you've got is a 15-minute attempt by me in your eyes, wrestle some kind of fake apology out of you. In my eyes, get an apology for the people whose lives you affected.
Is that I think the strategy, and I think in the long term, we have to have a lower tax.
But that's different.
And I don't think it is different.
That is different.
I'm not going to apologise for what the goal was.
Yes.
That's what I believe.
You're perfectly entitled. Honestly, I mean this. You're entitled to believe that your philosophy and your strategy would have worked over time. But I'm also entitled to go back at you and say the implementation was reckless, it was wrong, it tanked the markets, it spooked everybody in the world of economics, and the consequence of that was you got fired very quickly, and the Prime Minister lasted 44 days, and the whole thing brought shame on this country. But more importantly, millions of people in this country suffered personal financial loss as a consequence of what you guys did. And I just find it baffling, honestly, and I'm not trying to humiliate you.
No, I get that.
Because I've always liked you as a politician, and I did think you were going to be a good chancellor. And I'm sorry it didn't work out for you. But I'm actually sorrier for the people who lost money. And I think they'll be watching this going, why doesn't he just say sorry?
I understand where you're coming from.
Last chance.
Look, I just think it was a difficult time, but I still believe the strategy was the right one.
But the implementation was a fiasco.
And the implementation could have been better.
You're sorry for that?
I also think we should have had more.
Are you sorry for that?
We should have had more time. There you go. I'm sorry for the implementation. The strategy was the right.
And you're sorry for the damage the implementation caused to millions of people.
So there you go. We've had this discussion. I think you're right to say, on consideration, I think you're right to say people should put their hand up, and also having put their hand up, they should be able to show some contrition. And I'm happy.
You are sorry.
I'm happy to show that. What I'm not happy to say, and what I stick to, is the fact that as far as this country is concerned, and its wealth and its prospects, we cannot tax ourselves to prosperity.
But that's a different argument, and you're perfectly
entitled. No, but I made that argument for the last 50 minutes.
But am I right in thinking you now, for the damage that the implementation caused to millions of people, you're sorry?
I show abject contrition. I'm very...
Are you sorry?
Look, whatever formula of words.
I'm just asking, are you sorry?
I'm sorry
You're sorry.
The turbulence that that was caused.
You're sorry for the damage it caused to British people.
If that's what you want me to say.
No, it's what I want you to want to say.
What I want to say is that I think the strategy was right. I'm sorry for the implementation.
Are you sorry for the damage caused to the British people?
I'm sorry for the implementation, and it was too far.
And for the damage caused to the British people.
I don't know why you look. There were lots.
Because they suffered financial loss.
Lots of people were. But
but you were the chancellor.
Okay. I was the Chancellor of the Exchequer.
Are you sorry for the financial damage it caused to the British people?
I'm sorry for the damage and the loss, and it was a scary time, and I'm sorry for that.
Kwasi, we got there.
Okay.
And I've not tried to drag that out of you.
No. Look,
I've not tried to humiliate you.
We've had a good conversation.
Yes. And I think you've come to it.
I've thought about what you were saying.
Yes.
And I thought, actually, we've got to put your hand up. I've accepted responsibility a long time ago, and you've said, well, why don't you do the step forward? Take a step further and apologise. And I've said, that's fair enough.
And now you have?
Yeah.
Do you feel better now?
Not particularly. I don't feel better or worse. I feel...
I'm glad you have.
Well, I'm glad that you're happy, but I'm
not happy. I'm just glad that you have not only recognised accountability...
So I've totally recognised...
...and responsibility, but you've also apologised now to the people who suffered.
I've totally recognised
I think that is the right...
And a year on, we've had an interesting debate, and I'm looking at splitting hairs between responsibility and apologies and all the rest of it. And I think broadly, people were adversely affected. It is a scary time, particularly with mortgages, which are still going up in many instances. And I think on your principle, I think politicians should put their hands up and say they're sorry.